Hey everyone, it's Brett Hornby here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and wearing some Calgary Stampeders gear, as it should be getting excited for the Grey Cup this weekend, but obviously the total 2020 season has been cancelled, including the big game, so that will not be what I'll be talking about because there's no Grey Cup game to look forward to or recap. However, I do have some Calgary Stampeders news to share, as one of the things that the league has done to still get some news in as well, just to try to keep the league promoted as well, and the fact that there was no season and try to be very traditional, that they had the Grey Cup Unite for the week leading up into what was supposed to be the Grey Cup. Me personally, I actually did not take part in any of the virtual events that was held. I know that a lot of the virtual events, though, happen during the day, during the week, which makes it a little tougher to follow along when you're working during the daytime. But the Calgary Stampeders have also did some Grey Cup rewinds, so if you check out the website, that they showed all the highlights of the games that the Calgary Stampeders have won the Grey Cup, which we won 8 championships, and I've been around for 6 of them in my life. But the one thing that I'll talk about is in this video first, and then there's some other news that I'll talk about that's going into the 2021 season, that instead of having Cfl Awards, which usually that's awarded on the Thursday night to recognize the best talent for that season, well, given that there was no season to talk about and award, that there was the all-decade team, and there was a couple first team and second team all-decade teams, and I would say during the 2010s, the Calgary Stampeders were by far the best team in the league. I think their winning percentage in the 2010s, from 2010 to 2019, was over 700, which is very impressive, but we only got 2 Grey Cups to show for it in 2014 and 2018. We were on the wrong end of it in 2012, and we were definitely on the wrong end of it in 2016 and 2017. But the only years that the Calgary Stampeders at least weren't in the Western Final in the decade of the 2010s was 2011, when we lost to the Edmonton Eskimos in the West semifinal in Edmonton, and then in 2019 we lost the West semifinal to who eventually became the Grey Cup champions in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, where they spoiled the dream for the Calgary Stampeders to defend their title at home. But there's still impressive names that made it to the all-decade team for the Calgary Stampeders first and second team, and one big reason why the Calgary Stampeders was the top team in the 2010s in the CFL is Bo Levi Mitchell. Bo, our quarterback, actually got named as the top quarterback of the decade. I would say no argument there. You could make a case for maybe Ricky Ray as well, as he was getting towards the tail end of his career, but Bo Levi Mitchell is in his prime right now, and Ricky Ray had his best days from the last decade and in the early part of 2010s, but Bo definitely, since he's taken on the scene, we just signed him back in 2012, and I thought, that's a neat name for a Calgary quarterback, and ultimately he won the job in 2014, and he has took it since then. And I would say Doug Flutie, for me personally, I'd say he's the best quarterback to ever play for the Calgary Stampeders. However, Bo is a close second, and will definitely be interesting as time goes on. Where would rank Bo all-time greats in the CFL and the Calgary Stampeders as time goes on? You could say there's still some nostalgia for Doug Flutie as well, but he was one of the best to ever play in the CFL. So getting into the best of the decade, for the first team all-decade, this is who were either long-time Calgary Stampeders or Stampeders that made big contributions. Well, quarterback obviously was Bo Levi Mitchell, and then we had wide receiver Nick Lewis, the all-time reception leader, was also on the first team all-decade. And then center John Gott, who eventually went to the Ottawa Redblacks, but John Gott did start his career with the Calgary Stampeders. Also Stanley Bryant, the tackle, who ultimately went to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but Stanley Bryant was also one of the best offensive linemen that the Calgary Stampeders had in the early part of the decade. And then Charleston Hughes, the sackmaster, where eventually after the 2017 season we decided to move on from getting a little younger, especially on the defense, and Charleston Hughes, ultimately he went to Saskatchewan because we traded him to Hamilton first and then he got flipped to Saskatchewan. So it still looks weird to see Charleston Hughes wearing not Calgary gear. I mean, team aside, whatever team he cheers for, he plays for, but it still doesn't look right to see Charleston Hughes playing for someone else. And then Brandon Smith, the longtime secondary, who spent all 12 seasons with the Calgary Stampeders, and last season happened to be his last season. And then Brandon Penter, Rob Maver, who also recently retired after the 2019 season, as he played all 10 seasons with the Calgary Stampeders when we drafted him back in 2010. And of course, as coach and now current general manager and president, John Hufnagel. So that is just the first team all-decade for the Calgary Stampeders. And then we have a good list for the second team all-decade. Well, for running back, John Cornish. That guy's a beast. I'm surprised he's only second team all-decade for John Cornish, but he retired after 2015, but I would say winning 3 most outstanding Canadian awards in a row, including winning the Lou Marsh Award in 2013 as well. He has a trophy named after, and I made a video talking about that for when you recognize Canadian talent in the NCAA. John Cornish, that's how much of a beast he is. I mean, he was a dominant force with the University of Kansas Jayhawks before we drafted him back in 2006. And then Derek Dennis, another character we had on the offensive line. He also is on the team. And then Michael Johnson, the other sackmaster that the Calgary Stampeders had. We had Charles Hughes and Michael Johnson, who now they're both teaming up in Saskatchewan. And then I got Alex Singleton. Yeah, he's one of the best tacklers for the Philadelphia Eagles now, but he made a huge impact for the Calgary Stampeders when we drafted him back in 2016 and played 3 seasons and then eventually caught on with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I would say right now he is the best tackler for the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL as it is. And then Keon Raymond, the other secondary, who I think he actually is now the president of the CFL Players Association, and he still is around here in the Calgary market. There's Keon Raymond. And then you got Jamar Wall, another secondary, who's also been one of our staples on there. And then we have we had Rob Maver as a punter, while Rennie Paredes actually is the kicker. I almost had that same surprise. He's only a second team all-decade, one of the more accurate kickers in the league. And then Coach Dave Dickinson. So that's a very, very stacked team that, which is one of the reasons why the Calgary Stampeders have been able to be as successful as they have during the 2010s because of all that talent, as I mentioned. And I'd say ever since John Hufnagel, since he came back to the CFL, after he was originally the quarterback's coach and the offensive coordinator for the Calgary Stampeders all the way back, including the Grey Cup team in 1992, where he got to work with Doug Flutie. He also did work with Jeff Garcia, and then John Hufnagel went down in the NFL. Also, he spent time with the New England Patriots and the New York Giants, and also the Indianapolis Colts. So John Hufnagel, on his resume, he could say he worked with Doug Flutie, Jeff Garcia in the CFL. But then in the NFL, he got to work with both Mannings, Eli and Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady, quarterback. And then when he went back to the CFL, he spent some time with Henry Burris and Bo Levi Mitchell. You can also throw in Kevin Glenn as well. You got to debate as a CFL fan, is Kevin Glenn a CFL Hall of Famer? He has the numbers. Unfortunately, he has no Grey Cup title, but he is in the top 10 all-time passing in the CFL. And Kevin Glenn, I would say, had his best days as a Winnipeg Blue Bomber and won the Most Outstanding Player of the Year award. Unfortunately, he got hurt in the Eastern Final where he couldn't have a chance to play for the Grey Cup, and fortunately he was the quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders when we were on the wrong end of it in that sense. I mean, he was definitely great to fill in when we had to rotate before we discovered this Bo guy, and I would say Sean definitely can find talent. He learned that from Wally Bonham too. I'd say he taught him very well. So that's all I have for the talking about the all-decade. Bo Levi Mitchell is the all-time, quarterback for the decade in the 2010s. You won't get any argument from me being a Calgary Stampeder fan, but he's been impressive for the CFL and the Calgary Stampeders with outstanding player awards and being in the Grey Cup. And he's been actually in all the Grey Cups with the Calgary Stampeders in the 2010s because he was a backup to Kevin Glenn in 2012. And he actually did play in the last end of the game when it was garbage time. And Bo Levi Mitchell actually played in that game, and then he was in 2014 and 16, 17, and 18. So he's been in 5 Grey Cup games as a Calgary Stampeder, and he's rising up the history books as he actually, as of this recording, he is the second all-time passing leader for the Calgary Stampeders. Henry Burris actually is number 1 all-time, and depending on how long Bo plays and depending on where he is at, I could see him potentially be the all-time passing leader. I mean, the legacy he's already built for sure has been incredible. I still say Doug Flutie is the best quarterback that the Calgary Stampeders has ever had. I mean, the thing with Flutie is that he was definitely a lot more exciting to watch because he can scramble. And best way I can describe Bo is he does the unspectacular things very well, and always is able to find the open man. Sometimes, I mean, if you go back to the Grey Cup stuff he lost when he was a starter, sometimes I think he gambles too much, and I know Matt Dungan broke that down when after we won in 2018 that he didn't have to do too much or had the game on the line and gamble too much. Because I would say in 2016, despite coming back and losing in overtime, and then he being in Ottawa 2017, I mean, Bo had the game on the line, and I think he gambled too much on a couple plays that cost us the game when it got to that. In 2018, he didn't have to do that as well, but he's still a great quarterback. But other news for the Calgary Stampeders is that since we did not have a season this season, there are still some going to be changes to the coaching staff as between the harsh economic environment and the coaching cap, which I still quite understand the coaching cap as of right now. But if you look way back in January, where I made a video talking about the Calgary Stampeders coaching staff for this season that also did not happen. Well, the Calgary Stampeders decided to move on from Josh Bell, the secondaries coach, and George Cortez, who was going to come back for his 4th tour of duty, and surprisingly he is still with the coaching in football, I should say, and considering how long he's been coaching. But the Calgary Stampeders are going to be moving on from those two guys. I mean, unfortunately, it's a tough decision, but between the economic environment and the fact that there's the coaching cap, that those decisions had to be made. Everybody else is staying where they are. They shuffling a few positions around, but the one thing I'm definitely going to miss, and hopefully maybe Josh Bell will still get to coach somewhere in the CFL, and my luck would be is you'll get plucked in Montreal, and that'll be the next point that I'll get to talk to you. But I'm going to miss Josh Bell and just how he's dancing in the warm-up. And I mean, he was great with the secondary after he was a secondary himself, and how he coached the secondary for the last couple seasons with the Calgary Stampeders. But I'm going to miss his warm-up dances. Or says he played as a coach, and I think I remember when I went to the Labor Day rematch game up in Edmonton back in 2019, I remember when we used to do that, go travel and go to sporting events. That was such a long time ago. But I think I kind of started dancing with Josh Bell, and I think he kind of noticed me when I was watching the warm-up. But I'm going to miss that. But the next thing I was going to get to, and I said he'll probably go to Montreal, is that the Cfl schedule actually also got released. And what's going to be interesting with the Cfl schedule this upcoming season is that they emphasize a lot more with divisional rivals. I mean, there's still going to be 18 games, and hopefully maybe I'll have a second chance. As at this past season, it would have been fitting that I would spend my 38th birthday at the Calgary Stampeders home opener, but that season didn't happen. But the Calgary Stampeders will start the season on June 12th. Hopefully it'll be my 39th birthday. I'll actually get to spend it at the Calgary Stampeders home opener. I'll be playing the BC Lions, but we'll be playing the Western opponents actually 12 times instead of 10, which only leaves 6 games left to play the Eastern opponents. I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's kind of this trying to come back, but I mean, in terms of like restricting travel for COVID reasons, because we don't know where things are at when it comes to where things are going to be at with COVID-19, especially next spring. I mean, you hear encouraging news about vaccines, but I mean, of course, the highest risk and then the front line. It's going to take a while before it gets to the general public, and hopefully we'll have games. I mean, the CFL definitely cannot afford to not have another season of no football, and they definitely need fans in attendance because that's their big gist of their business model is having fans in attendance. But what the Calgary Stampeders schedule has is that actually the Calgary Stampeders will not be going to Ottawa this year, and Montreal, the team that I mentioned, that I'll be a little bummed if Josh Bell goes to the Montreal Alouettes, because then I won't get to see him dance and practice. I'm just being hypothetical, but the Montreal Alouettes actually will not be coming here, so that's the one different untraditional schedule that came out, but came out a little earlier than anticipated. I mean, in the past, I remember it wasn't until February that the schedule came out, and then the last couple of seasons they decided, well, we should schedule just before Christmas. And then for me, when the schedule comes out, it does loosely plan my weekends from June till November in terms of what games to look forward to, and of course if I want to do any travel myself in terms of if I want to catch any football games on the road or plan holidays, or if it works out that the Stampeders are on a bye on that week that I want to go on holidays, and that also works out nicely as well. But I mean, the schedule is out, so you can always check on the CFL website. However, I'm just not 100% confident at this time that we'll actually get to start planning my weekends from June to November and be able to plan any football trips or any travel. I mean, it's hard to say about how much traveling I have a plan to do next season, but I am hopeful that that I might be going to Hamilton for the. I guess now it will be the 100th Grey Cup, 8th Grey Cup in Hamilton, which is where it's scheduled to be next season. And I know if I do get to go to Hamilton, I'm going to have to add another day to my time away so I can go to Niagara Falls, because that's definitely one site that, as a Canadian, I have to check out. I haven't been to Niagara Falls. Well, I say Canada's big and wide and expensive, that there's a reason why there's lots of sites I haven't been to in Canada. And you got people out east probably say I wish I got to see Banff, Lake Louise, and the ocean coast, the Pacific Ocean coast, which, I've seen all that, being that I'm in Western Canada myself, because it's a lot closer to me. But it is what it is. But that's all I have for talking about, the Calgary Stampeders in terms of, the all-decade team and just some news. And the schedule's out. I'm definitely counting down the days to end of this year that we call 2020, which has definitely been a bad year. A bag of stinky diapers, and big reason for that is no Grey Cup this year, and haven't had CFL football, and who knows about sports in general when it comes to North America. I mean, the CFL has trying to plan to get a season in next season, have a relaunch, and I know that the NFL, they still been playing along, but they've had to deal with outbreaks, and I know the NFL also recently mentioned that the CFL should try to find some long-term viability. I think the NFL is also recognizing that potentially some talent that come up here, play up here in Canada, might hone their skills where it gets attention down in the NFL, that we could be a potential feeder league as well, and then have another option for any players that maybe aren't quite cut up for the NFL game. It's two different games. It's not necessarily that no talent is in one league over the other. I mean, obviously you'd be better off financially if you can make it in the NFL than in the CFL, but sometimes, players who go down the NFL, yeah, they probably collect a few paychecks, but then it's like, yeah, but I want to actually come up here and play, so that hopefully they collect some of that money and then come to the CFL and carry where they left off. So we'll see what that remains to be seen, but hopefully next year will be much, much better than this year, and right now it's looking iffy at this stage. So as I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, home the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, you know what you do, just make sure you subscribe. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, but I also do have personal vlogs, attempt at comedy, and I also do share my experience with them on the road to sporting event. Remember when we got to do that kind of stuff in the past, but hopefully we'll be able to do that once again in 2021, but that's all I have on my channel in the meantime. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, do follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey. You know what you need to do, and just make sure you subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below for other ways you can follow me and get any potential updates on my channel. So as I say, go Stamps go, and I'll see you in the next video.